Boy, thank you, Melanie. What a beautiful rendition of that song. And thank you, Jocko, for playing your your flute so gorgeous this morning. And hello, everyone. You're gorgeous, too. I'm so glad to see you this morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Barbara Wells Tenhove, retired UU minister, living here in Bellingham, and have the privilege and pleasure of being affiliated with this congregation and in charge of the organization of these summer services. So I'm really glad to see so many people here on a beautiful day like today. Now, I know many of you who've been coming during the summer have noticed that we do not have an order of service. You just have to trust that we will get you where you need to go. So follow along. But if you have some questions about our congregation, lovingly known as Buff, you can find this buff-colored piece of paper in the back of your pew. And it includes the covenant, which we'll be reading somewhat later in the service. So you may want to take a look at that. We're really glad to have families with young children here with us today, and we hope that you have a wonderful time here at Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. Today we have Anna, Lucy, and Corey who are going to be doing cool and groovy things upstairs, and there'll be a moment during the service when the children can find their way to that glorious, fun activities in the sky, which is upstairs. Now, I have 3 brief announcements. So first, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., our monthly Taizé service will take place right here and over Zoom, led by our also Reverend Tessie. You can go to buff.org for more information. And I want to note that Heather Delaney, whose art is in the narthex, will be here after church if you want to learn more about her work. I want to acknowledge that our minister, Paul, is in the house, so he's back there. So, check in with him if you need him. He's here. And finally, I want to invite you to save the date of September 29 to 30, which is really not all that far away, for an all-church rummage sale. A working group is in formation, and you'll see an update later in the midweek update. And you can contact Drew Betts if you are willing and able to help out. But speaking of Drew Betts, I'm delighted to introduce her as the primary leader of today's service. I first met Drew many years ago when we were both leaders in what was then the Pacific Northwest District of our denomination. Drew has been a member of Buff for 22 years, and she currently serves on its board, and she's been a Unitarian Universalist since 1987. She's a graduate of UU Leadership School and was on the District Leadership School staff for 4 years, where she taught the leadership skills segment. Can you catch that leadership part of that? And along with her husband, Mike, Drew has been a significant part of the Elliott Institute community, a family camp on Hood Canal, where she first presented a version of this service, and where she and I and a whole bunch of people here will be next week. Woo, woo! So I'm delighted to turn the service over to Drew now. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here, and I can say that it doesn't come without butterflies in my stomach, because there's a lot of layers of this service that we have for you today, and it's taken a lot of really good people to take the service that I designed for Winter Elliott and make it work for Buff. So I want to thank Reverend Barbara, first of all, Melanie for the music piece, Liz Roberts, who was an early advisor, Carrie Kenline, who came on board as the celebrant. Our readers this morning will be myself, Carrie is going to read, Liz is going to read, Lee Willis is going to read, and Rod Haynes is going to read. So we have 5 readers. The sequence is going to be that we have a theme that I'll talk about a little bit, and then we'll have a song that represents that, and then 3 poems within each of the themes that relate to it. We'll follow each theme with a little moment and a breath, because we want you to just take in. Some of these poems are not flowery. I think that's a good word to put it. So our themes this morning are doubt and uncertainty, anger, clarity, seen a new way, connection, and hope. So we're moving from doubt and uncertainty to hope, but on that journey, we will find some anger. And on that journey, we will discover what gives us connection in the world. So my pleasure to be here. Carrie, would you like to light the chalice and lead us in our covenant? You want me to do the covenant? No, you do the chalice. Oh, she's doing it all. It wasn't in my notes.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Kenline, and yes, we will be lighting the chalice in just a couple minutes. So those of you who are visiting remotely might want to light your chalices at home along with us. But because we're drawing our inspiration from poetry, I thought I would introduce this chalice lighting with some thoughts about what I love about poems. This is what I love about poems. A good poem, the right poem at the right time, can reach right into some hidden part of your heart. It knows exactly what you need. Its metaphors as practical as a hammer or a ladder. Its music and rhythm an incantation, an invitation to pause in your striving, an invitation to thriving. If you find a poem that speaks your secret language, a deep poem, a quirky poem, a poem that understands you or wakes you up, you may want to learn it by heart. You can take it wherever you go. You never know when it will come in handy. The right poem at the right time may be exactly what you need. So, as we light our chalice this morning, may we open our ears, our minds, and our hearts to the many gifts of poetry. Now please join me as we recite our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
This is a song called Lost Words Blessing. Enter the wild with care, my love, and speak the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you travel far through heather, crag, and river, may you, like the little fisher, set the stream alight with glitter. May you enter now as otter, without falter, into water. Look to the sky with care, my love, and speak the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you journey on, past dying stars exploding like the gilded one in flight, leave your little gifts of light. And in the dead of night, my darling, find the gleaming eye of starling, like the little aviator. Sing your heart to all dark matter. Walk through the world with care, my love, and sing the things you see. Let new names take in root and thrive and grow. And even as you stumble through Maher's sands eroding, let the fern unfurl your grieving, let the heron still your breathing, let the silky swim you deeper. Oh, my little silver seeker, even as the hour grows bleaker, be the singer and the speaker. And in city and in forest, let the larks become your chorus. And when everything is gone, let the raven call you home. Now let's all sing the children out to their activities with Go Now in Peace.
What a great way to start. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Melanie, for that beautiful song. Okay, we're going to dive in. Our first theme, doubt and uncertainty. I curated these poems on these themes, partly in response to the pandemic. The poetry service started evolving in 2021, 2022. We did it as an evening service at Elliott. But I think that a lot of us encounter doubt and uncertainty in our daily lives for a number of reasons. And the three poems that we will share this morning will reflect that to a certain extent. We have, I'm going to start, and then Lee's going to read, and then Carrie will read, and between each poem we're going to do a little sound on the rain stick. So we're going to give you time to take each poem in. I'm starting this section with a poem called Learning to Breathe Again. Just that title alone seems appropriate. It's by Magella Kulanani, who, interestingly enough, song, oh my God. I'm a little nervous, I can tell. I'm happy that we're going to be having a song about doubt, and it's Woyaya. Let's together and sing. Please. I'm laughing.
Teal hymnal, number 1020.
Yes, oh God.
It's Wo Ya Ya, and I don't know how we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. So just follow along as best as you can.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know,
I'm going to switch mics with hope this is a calmer mic for me. My poem, I'm starting with, is Learning to Breathe Again by Magella Kulanane, who is a poet of Irish descent who lives in New Zealand. And I picked this poetry book up when I was there in 2018. Shadowing the night's transit, it is no secret, this whispering, snatched in broken phrases, entering memory, returning to a child's question asked a long time ago. What happens if my mother dies before me, abandons me to heart struck tight, to each rib pulled taut? I can hardly breathe. It doesn't bear thinking about, so turn your mind to that miniature stalker of light, brightening over the edge of the peninsula, to other thoughts, filtering back and forth, the waves spangling through the boathouses, the salt air licked by the fall and glide of the seagulls, squabbling in sounds you can't make head or tail of. Better to consider the small shapes in the gorgeous chaos of the world, a snowflake flitting through the air, swaths of blue and orange entangling the sky in their warm shawl, glances to be tucked away like stones run smooth by rivers, the shadows of hands like wings playing with the light.
Our beloved poet laureate, Billy Collins, was reading a poem or book by Juan Ramon Jimenez. The quote he starts his poem with is, "The worst thing about death must be the first night," from Juan Ramon Jimenez. So Billy Collins says, "Before I opened you, Jimenez, it never occurred to me that day and night would continue to circle each other in the ring of death. But now you have me wondering if there will also be a sun and a moon, and will the dead gather to watch them rise and set, then repair each soul alone to some ghastly equivalent of a bed? Or will the first night be the only night, a darkness for which we have no other name? How feeble our vocabulary in the face of death. How impossible to write it down. This is where language will stop. The horse we have ridden all our lives, rearing up at the edge of a dizzying cliff. The word that was in the beginning and the word that was made flesh, those and all the other words will cease. Even now, reading you on this trellised porch, how can I describe a sun that will shine after death? But it is enough to frighten me into paying more attention to the world's day moon, to sunlight bright on water, or fragmented in a grove of trees, and to look more closely here at these small leaves, these sentinel thorns whose employment it is to guard the rose.
This is a poem that I wrote this past spring. It's called Unsettled in Big Rock Garden. I opened the gate of Big Rock Garden to wander among lacy trees, cultivated plants, and curated sculptures. All was not well. I was unsettled. I told the unfurling ferns and bursting blossoms all about it. I shared it like a burden or a problem to solve. Me too, they all said. We're unsettled. Isn't it beautiful? Lingering by a reflecting pool, I could feel myself open just a little to the unsettledness of spring. It isn't just about spring, it whispered. Every stage of life and death is unsettling. The remains of a tree trunk, bald and bumpy, completely agreed. A chorus of soft green voices chimed in. Every stage of life and death is unsettling. I bowed in thanks, then closed the gate to walk back into my life. Amid all that was unsettled in me, something settled.
I will now ring the bell and invite you to take a breath and just think about those images of doubt and uncertainty that we've just shared. We move now into our second theme. I call it anger, clarity, seen a new way. Sometimes anger is what burns away things that confuse us and can burn away doubt. And it can be a powerful tool, and it's a necessary tool to use effectively. So we'll start with a song that Carrie will introduce. Oh, Barbara's going to introduce it, and it is 10:17 in the teal hymnal.
10:17 in the teal hymnal. Please rise in body and spirit, and we'll sing this together with a lot of liveliness. And, you know, if you can put your book down some, that's always a good thing, too. We are building a new way. Here we go. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way, working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of fear and greed and jealousy. Well sung, well sung.
Mindfulness of Righteous Anger by McGuire. Mindfully running for the bus and missing it anyway. Mindfully mistreating a cold caller with disproportionate contempt. Mindfully furious as the news unfolds. Mindfully shouting until you're red in the face at the opposition. Mindfully arming yourself against injustice by doing nothing for a bit. Mindfully arguing for an hour and wanting to be right about something you don't entirely understand yourself, but you are too invested in it now to be willing to concede anyway. Mindfully braking suddenly in your car at a pedestrian walking out in front of you, shouting, "Watch where the hell you're going, idiot!" Mindfully alarmed with the awareness that it is in your nature to die, unbalanced and tear-filled. Mindfully slamming the door and deleting all accounts. Mindfully finished. Mindfully snapping the last straw. Mindfully to the bin with it all. Mindfully in a love-hate relationship with dissatisfaction. Mindfully sitting with your eyes squeezed shut, wishing to vanish the world away. Mindfully so had it with the world, you'll give this mindfulness malarkey a miss for an hour of screaming at the sky instead. Mindful of this.
My poem comes from Lucille Clifton, who is a now deceased African-American poet who was one of the strong women of letters in the African-American community. She was the poet laureate of Maryland for 8 years. From a letter written to Dr. W.E.D.B. Du Bois by Alvin Borquest of Clark University in Massachusetts and dated April 3rd, 1905. We are pursuing an investigation here on the subject of crying as an expression of the emotions and should very much like to learn about its peculiarities among the colored people. We have been referred to you as a person competent to give us information on the subject. We desire especially to know about the following salient aspects. 1, whether the Negro sheds tears. Reply from Ms. Clifton. He do, she do, they live, they love, they try, they tire, they flee, they fight, they bleed, they break, they moan, they mourn, they weep, they die, they do, they do, they do.
A Ritual to Read to Each Other by William E. Stafford. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each other's elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park, I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake. Or breaking a line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes, no, maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
Let us now end that section with the bell, taking what you can, letting the rest fall away.
We come now to our time of sharing offerings. I notice that I feel a lot of gratitude during this service for poetry and for all the ways we share beautiful, real things with each other, and the deep listening and receiving. Just all the ways we humans reach out our tendrils of connection to each other. And for this community where I feel a sense of belonging and also an invitation to be myself fully and expressively, which can be pretty rare. So I appreciate all the different ways so many of you contribute to this fellowship. And one way, of course, to express your support of this community is by placing something in the offering basket as it comes around. And for those of you visiting remotely, there'll be a slide on your screen telling you how to give. Thanks so much.
By way of introduction to Cavatina, which is from the movie The Deer Hunter, which was about the Vietnam War and what happened to people afterwards as they came home. I just wanted to say that I recall going through the turbulent years of the Vietnam War when I was in college. I don't think I could have gotten through it without the poetry of people like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell. So, you know, you kind of wonder in terms of what's going on in the world today and how it impacts young people and what poetry they are listening to for support.
Thank you for the beautiful music, Melanie. We now turn to our third theme, which will provide some uplift because it's about connection. And as we think about connection, I invite you to think about and listen to the poems and the music, to think about that which you're connected to. Sometimes it's people, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's other things, but to be alive is to be connected. And the strands of connection that we weave to keep ourselves in this place, in this time, are important for all of us to honor. Alrighty, so
We're going to turn to our great hymnals and sing number 298, Wake Now My Senses. 298.
connections. One of the things I've connected to for a long time is the writing of Barbara Kingsolver, who I adore. She's close to my age, too. I know we're kind of in the same category. But this is one of her poems from her most recent book of poetry. She's also, I was reading last night, the Pulitzer Prize winner for fiction for 2023. She's a true American woman of letters. This poem is called Walking Each Other Home. My friend lives on this road, the same as me. 2 hollows down, 2 glazed mountain sides, briar patches that go without saying, fields in pumpkin, or hay, or fallow. Once, we can never forget, a bear. And once, for too long a season, a road-killed deer whose return to dust we both watched, the ragged pelt dried to leather, the shipwreck of its rib cage. My friend alone saw the bear and told me of it the winter of her chemo. I was the one to see the deer, fresh struck, and had to find words, though even now I can hardly bear to say how I watched hooves beating air, reaching for some blind heaven. Between us, We know this map by heart. I walk from my house to hers, and then together we speak of things, or don't. We are often quiet, all the way back home to mine, or she walks here first, collects me for her return. Either way, this is the road where we live. Always we walk each other home, and always we walk some of it alone.
Shack Medicine, a poem by Robert Strong. The river glides in silence. The night is deep like a loving mother. A silence goes back and forth through the marsh. The same silence that was here in my shack waiting for me, it was always here. I was gone so long now, the silence is so much deeper, and I sink down into it. The sadness I met in the world falls away from me. One by one, my dreams return. Everything good I put into my house is here, living in the silence. Boards placed a certain way, a window facing the moon, a straight-back chair at the table, gifts received, and pottery bowls and cups I made with my own hand. Things crude and useful that began from enthusiasm and kept that life and give it back. Talismans and pieces of string. In the night silence, my house speaks to me. It leaves me alone a long time, but then it reaches out. A gentle hand penetrates my body. Through the flesh it reaches in, and on one rib below my heart leaves hanging a small silver box with all my good dreams inside it. Nothing can ever be taken from you now. Amen.
Remember, by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their stories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember, you are all people, and all people are you. Remember, you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember, the dance language is, that life is. Remember.
And with a bell, let us remember those connections. Our final theme for this morning is hope. What a wonderful word. Let's just all breathe that in. Let's just say it out loud. Hope. Hope. You just have to, it just is so lovely to just say that word. We're going to start with a song about breath. Just as long as I have breath. I think it is number 6 in the gray hymnal. One of my favorite songs.
This is a poem called Beginners by Denise Levertov. It's dedicated to the memory of Karen Silkwood and Elliot Gralla, and it begins with a quote. From too much love of living, hope and desire set free, even the weariest river winds somewhere to the sea. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet, not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud.
This poem was written by our beloved Rick just last summer. It's called I Want You to Listen. Just when I think there is no hope, all the birds cry out, "Here is sky." The whales breach and blow, singing, "Here is ocean." Bear, grumbling to cubs over the mountain, calls out, "Here is life." Will you listen for my voice? It's out there too, high and dark, between nothing and everything. I want you to listen.
Right, blessings. Such Singing in the Wild Branches by Mary Oliver. It was spring, and I finally heard him among the first leaves. Then I saw him clutching the limb in an island of shade, with his red-brown feathers all trim and neat for the new year. First I stood still and thought of nothing. Then I began to listen. Then I was filled with gladness, and that's when it happened. When I seemed to float, to be myself, a wing or a tree, and I began to understand what the bird was saying, and the sands in the glass stopped for a pure white moment, while gravity sprinkled upward, like rain rising, and in fact, it became difficult to tell just what it was that was singing. It was the thrush for sure, but it seemed not a single thrush, but himself and all his brothers, and also the trees around them, as well as the gliding long-tailed clouds in the perfect blue sky. All of them were singing. And, of course, so it seemed, so was I. Such soft, solemn, and perfect music doesn't last for more than a few moments. It's one of those magical places wise people like to talk about. One of the things they say about it that is true is that once you've been there, you're there forever. Listen, everyone has a chance. Is it spring? Is it morning? Are there trees near you? And does your own soul need comforting? Quick then, open the door and fly on your heavy feet. The song may already be drifting away.
One more bell to just take in those messages of hope, and then I'm going to close with one final poem. Eagle poem by Joy Harjo. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. Amen and blessed be. Thank you for being here today. Carrie will extinguish our chalice, and then we will join hands or elbows in circle round for freedom. And thank you to all the readers, everybody. I'm just going to stay away from her. Stuart Elliott. How about that? Do you want to here? Perform on. Onward. That I broke up reading.